Hi everyone, I hope you're all very well today. In this video, I'm going to be discussing intervals, which is essentially the distance between two pitches. If you think about the intervals in a show, if this is part 1 and part 2, the interval is the distance or break in between. And intervals are very important when you're learning music because they essentially build scales, chords, and melodies. If I play any kind of melody, that's just a series of intervals in succession. Or if I create a chord, that's me just stacking intervals on top of one another. So they're really important to learn. And in this video, I'm going to specifically be going over the intervals that form the major scale. In other words, the major intervals up as far as an eighth. And I will do a second video on more intervals, but I think if you learn these first and understand them, the other ones are going to be very easy to stack the knowledge on top of. So, why the major scale? Well, the major scale I think is very fundamental in music, and I see it as the scale from which all other scales derive. So if you can understand in terms of intervals that the major scale is constructed of a first or a root, a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth, a sixth, a seventh, and an eighth, also known as an octave, and just realizing that those intervals in succession create the major scale. If I tried that on a different root, it's my root G, root, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth. Or I could go on a B flat, root, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth. So you might have noticed all of those scales, they were all major scales and they all sounded the exact same, but of course I was playing some at a higher pitch, some at a lower pitch. And the reason they sounded the exact same is that the interval, the distance between each note, was the exact same, even though I was starting on a different place. So let me break this down very simply. I have a root. A root is simply my starting point. It is 1, or you could think about it as your tonal centre. Now to create a second, all I have to do is go up 2 half steps or 1 whole step. It doesn't really matter. And I'm going to say whole step and half step, but a whole step is essentially a tone and a half step is just a semitone. They mean the same thing. So in order to create a second, a major second, you go up 1 whole step or 2 half steps. Now, if that was my root here, how about if my root was E? Well, I just have to go up 2 half steps, major second. How about if my root was B? Or if my root was A flat? And you might notice that they all do sound the same, even though they're being played at a different point. And that's because the interval again is the same between them. They just had 1 half step in between. And the way I think about the second, the major second, is that it sounds quite hopeful. Something good might happen. That kind of is how it sounds. And also quite clustery. It doesn't sound as dissonant as this, but it does sound a little bit dissonant. And a nice song to help you remember the sound of the major second is Happy Birthday. Happy birthday, 1121. Happy birthday, happy birthday. So it doesn't matter where I sing it, play it, it sounds the same because the intervals I'm using between each root is the same. Now let's have a look at a major third. 1, 3. So this is 2 whole steps or 1, 2, 3, 4 half steps. So if that was my root, that's the sound of it. If my root was E, 1, 2, 3, 4 half steps. If my root was B, 1, 2, 3, 4. Da-da. If my root was G, 1, 2, 3, 4. And the sound of the major third is very, I would say, bright and what's the word? Triumphant? Yeah, I think triumphant is a good word for the sound of the major third. Da-da! And a nice song to help you remember the major third would be Kumbaya, Kumbaya, da-da. Or you could think of Oh When the Saints. Oh When the Saints. Just the beginning of those songs is a nice, helpful way of remembering the sound of it. Our next interval is a major fourth, also known as a perfect fourth. So often you'll see it called a perfect fourth. They mean the same thing. And that's created by going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 half steps from the root. Da-da. You can remember it by thinking, Amazing Grace. So if I did that on E, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I did it on D flat, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Da-da. And I really love the sound of fourths. I actually think it's probably my favorite interval. There's just something very whimsical about them. I really love the sound of it. It's quite oriental to me as well. And now let's have a look at the next one, the major fifth, also known as the perfect fifth. And this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 half steps away from the root. Da-da. And the sound of the major fifth is quite, I would say, stable and quite powerful as well. And also that interval is known as a power chord, the root and fifth together. So you'd often hear that being played on guitar as well. An easy song to help you remember the sound of the major fifth is that lovely Elvis song, Wise Men Say da 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 da. So just that initial interval again. Or you could think of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. That will also get you there. Our next interval is the major sixth, and this is constructed by going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 half steps from the root. And to me, this interval is quite melancholic and soft, I would say. A helpful song to remember the sound of it is My Bonnie Lies Over the Ocean, or the beginning of My Way by Frank Sinatra. And now the end is here. It's good to have reference points, songs to help you remember the sounds of these intervals. And you can pick your own, you don't have to go with these ones, but these are just things I found useful. Now our next interval is the major seventh. That does sound a little bit clashy. It does sound nice when it's filled out a little bit. That sounds much softer. And this interval is created by going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 half steps from the root. It's also quite easy to locate because it's just 1 half step down from the root above. So if I did that anywhere else, if I start on A, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, same thing. That's a major seventh here. And you could do that with every other root. And for this one, the interval for remembering it, I usually just think, take me on. So that AHA song, Take On Me. Now, finally, let's go to our octave, also known as an eighth. And this is coming full circle in a way. We are moving 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 notes from the root to get an octave. And that makes sense because there are literally 12 notes on the piano in music in Western harmony. So that's the sound of the octave. It sounds very resolute because, I mean, it is. You're literally returning home. So those are the intervals that construct the major scale. And I would learn these not just because it's going to help you with your scales, it's also really going to help you for your ear training, recognizing what a sixth sounds like, for example, and picking out those individual notes. 1, 6, or if I started here, 1, 6. Now, a good way to practice these intervals is I would just simply go through the notes, creating the interval on top. So, for example, creating a major second, thinking, okay, I just have 1 half step in between, and familiarizing yourself with the sound of it. And then you could do the same thing for thirds, major thirds. And then you could just do the same thing for fourths. And so on. So I would do that just to have some fun and getting used to the sound of it. And I promise this will also help when you're constructing chords, when you're playing inversions, really everything, because it's very fundamental. So thank you so much everyone for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it and that it was informative for you today. If you did like the video, I would really appreciate a like and subscribe, and just have a lovely day and God bless.